Crazy weekend in Baton Rouge. Obviously, you know by now Brian Kelly was fired. We'll give you the details of how the final steps played out to his termination. Remember to subscribe right here and help us grow, and appreciate you giving us your feedback and support. Well, as we all know, anybody that watched the game know that the Saturday night game against Texas A&M, a very important game, even though LSU's playoff hopes said this was not a playoff team. It was an overrated team all year long. But the final straw came not just with the loss to Texas A&M, but how it looked. Ironically, we have to go back a little bit on what happened leading up to the game. In a tone-deaf move, the university decided to announce on a news dump on Friday before the A&M game that they are raising prices for tickets. So it's the typical news dump Friday that happens. Then they have this game that happens. And what a worse thing to do than to, serve someone the worst meal they ever had and then tell them that they're going up in prices, and it just wasn't a good timing. But what is interesting about this process, we need to understand that Louisiana has a governor in Jeff Landry that basically sent the former president, Tate packing. They're opposite in the political spectrum, as a lot of Republican governors and university presidents are. Sent him packing, basically told him to find a job. He's now at Rutgers. And he does not like the spending, and therefore tweeted out about it, which is kind of unusual, I think. I guess in today's political environment, maybe not. Tweeted out that the board and LSU should reconsider doing that. Now, obviously, that's raising prices. That's obviously a political ploy. You speak up for the fans and the people is what you do if you're in politics, of course. I understand that. But that kind of led to some issues. But as the game was going on, Governor Landry, as well as the Board of Supervisors, who, remember, the governor appoints the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors is the one that's hiring the president, and then the president obviously oversees the athletic director. So you understand how things work in the Louisiana legislature and the LSU environment. Working there, I know. It is ironic also that the Board of Supervisors were all at that game. Once a year they have a game in which all the Board of Supervisors dress up in their little purple coats, and they have a nice dinner together the night before. They all go to the game. They're all sitting in the box, and this game is happening. And so the governor's talking to his people that he appointed and saying, this can't happen. This is not good enough. We've got to make some moves. We can't allow things like this to happen. So we forward to Sunday morning. Governor Jeff Landry calls a meeting for the afternoon with the Board of Supervisors, with a few key boosters, the athletic director not invited. After the meeting, it was determined that changes would need to be made. They kind of gave the edict to Scott Woodard gave him a few options to look at, including staff issues, maybe getting some things reworked on that staff. Scott Woodard met with Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly reported in to work as he normally does on a Sunday morning after a game. Went to the LSU Ops Center. And after the meeting with Scott Woodard in the afternoon, he immediately left the building. So the coaching staff is not telling anybody in the coaching staff. They knew something was up. Started to get some calls, started to get a feel that not only was Kelly on the hot seat, but that the change was imminent. Was told in that meeting with Woodard, Kelly offered to make a change at offensive coordinator Joe Sloan to keep his job. Kelly's agent, Trace Armstrong, reached out as well to Scott Woodard to try to keep his job. That wasn't going to happen. I mean, the edict had come down. And so the decision was made as Brian, they told Brian, don't make any decisions because there are other things on the table, meaning your head on a chopping block. So LSU, Scott informed LSU on behalf of the LSU board, as well as Trace Armstrong, his agent, that they wanted to negotiate the settlement down a little bit. And they told them to kick rocks or whatever they told them to do, pound sand, and they said no. There's $53 million left on the deal. But let me explain the contract and how it works. The contract for Brian Kelly calls for monthly payments of 95% of the remaining of the deal, which is good on a monthly payment. So it's a little under $800,000 a month. Good living if you can make it, I know. LSU would like to reduce that amount for obvious reasons, and maybe reduce it by offering a different payment plan over a shorter period in a few installments. For example, I'm not saying this is the plan. Let me give you an idea. If you want to reduce the total amount and you can raise the money, let's say $15 million now from outside sources, which, by the way, as of Saturday night, they had a little over $10 million raised from some of the key boosters to put towards the buyout, immediate buyout. They could raise $15 million and pay him $15 million now and raise another $15 million and pay him, say, $15 million in 6 months. That's $30 million that you get. I know you say, well, why is he going to leave, more on the table? Another $20 million on the table. Well, may not. Probably won't. But if you're getting that, and if you look at it, certainly from a tax standpoint, you have to look at those situations. But if you have that money, money makes money. We all know that. Good business people, whether it's a university, a good business, an individual, you could make that money, make a lot of money for you over the next 6 years. So he's 64, Brian Kelly is. He's 70 by the time he get the monthly installments. It's something to consider. I don't know that that's going to be something in those exact numbers that's going to be offered, but they'd like to reduce it. Look, don't look for LSU to take this to court with the threat of litigation. The threat of litigation often moves the negotiations forward a little bit. Look, if you have things that you can fire a coach for cause, that would require discovery on both sides, which makes people uncomfortable. Plus the legal fees that drain some of the money that you have are owed to you. And of course, you never know when you go to court what the result might be, particularly when it's in a Louisiana court with a Louisiana judge with, you just don't know. It's something that we will see. It's why the decision about how they're going to pay them has not been decided yet. It's in negotiation. One thing was brought up. They backed it off. I'm sure cooler heads on both sides will look at it again and figure out a way. At some level, they're going to have to pay him. From a university standpoint, it's never a good look to litigate, as it hurts when shopping for a new coach. Hey, they don't honor their contract. You don't go there. You kill yourself in the agent world. I can tell you that. For example, I can tell you that LSU could have taken Ed Orgeron to court and proven to fire him with cause. They didn't do it. They got the full $17 million. When you talk about litigation costs, the negative approach it gives to to any university or to the candidate, you see while both people, either side, doesn't want some things to come out. The other thing to keep in mind, Scott Woodard, the athletic director, won't be making this call on the new head coach. There's a new university president that's going to, the search committee for the university president is going to be presenting their recommendations to the board on Wednesday, this Wednesday. What is today's Wednesday's date? Is going to be the 29th. It's going to be recommended that McNeese president Wade Rouse is going to be recommended as the new president of LSU. That's who the governor wants. He wants Louisiana people on, in it. And the board is going to do what the governor wants because, again, they're working at the behest of the governor. That is likely to be approved on November 4th in the next board meeting at LSU, with a start date for Rouse January 1st, but he certainly will be involved because technically the governor can't fire the athletic director at LSU, but the president can. And of course, the president of the university works for the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors work for and appointed by the governor. I say that again for the third time because you need to understand that. So read between the lines. Governor Landry sent former president at LSU, William Tate, basically told him, I would encourage you to look for another job. You're not going to be retained here. And that's when he upped and left to go to Rutgers. I would suspect right now that Scott Woodard, who Governor Landry feels has been excessive in his spending, and I think he wants him out. So I do think that one of the first moves that the new president would make would be making that move. I don't know that it needs to be done quickly because at this stage, he's not going to be making the call on the new head coach. So that's not going to happen. The new president, I just mentioned, is going to be involved. And I do think there's going to be something that needs to be understood here, that the new president could name an athletic director before hiring a head coach. I don't know that that's going to be the case, though. Very likely that it's going to be made from within the LSU family, and then the head coach position is needed more timely. Now, I think we're talking about probably towards the end of this year anyway for both. So those are semantics. The bottom line is Scott Woodard, future here is not really good. This is not the podcast. We're going to get into who's next. You're going to hear the names. There's some different approaches how they want to do this move. We're going to keep you up to date on who truly is going to be vetted and why not certain guys will be considered. And a lot of those things are being formulated as we speak. So we appreciate you joining us. It's always difficult when we deal with situations like this. These things move fast. We knew that Brian's seat was getting hotter and hotter. And as the expectations of this season got off to a high start, and then they've not exceeded, it's the fourth year, and the direction of the program. We'll get into more about some of the problems with Brian Kelly. That's going to be next up on the topic, is why, and as much as I think he's a good coach and his track record has been a very successful coach, he wasn't engaged with, he was strictly a kind of out-of-touch CEO type that is delegated to people that really, quite frankly, our head coach's decisions, he was not engaged with it. It was kind of a money grab for him, and it's unfortunate, and it's why I think one of the many reasons why they've fallen short in his tenure. Again, appreciate you joining us. Talk to you again next time, everybody. We'll keep you up to date more on things like that as well as the future LSU football.